Welcome to Shade and the City. I'm your girl Treese, and we are here to do none other than go beyond the gates. This is season 1, episode 94. So this is today's episode, Monday. Um, yeah, guys, it was a tearjerker for me. You know, my sensitive Pisces behind. Um, I almost cried a few times, but y'all let me know what y'all think. But yeah, y'all, if you have not already, all of my Shade Squad, please make sure you hit the like button. And for any of our new viewers joining us, please make sure that you go ahead, give us a little wave in the comments, let us know you're here. And if you liking the vibe, go ahead and subscribe. But please know we are very friendly over here, okay? So yeah, y'all, this was I think Elaine, you're gonna be right about Naomi and Jacob. Absolutely, I definitely see that coming. But this is interesting because I feel like this was I don't want to call it a filler episode. It was definitely good. Um, I think they're just setting us up for what's to come. Like, whew. But yeah, y'all let me know your thoughts. And I'm about to get into this recap and rock rough and stuff with my afro puff. Hey, rock on with my bad self. I'm just kidding, y'all. But let's get into it and let's get shady. So we kick off this episode, and Vernon is at home with Anita, beating himself up because he was like, I thought I was sparing Martin. And Anita was like, look, you accomplished the mission. And Vernon's like, he's not convinced. Okay. She reminds Vernon that, look, Martin is not in jail and he still has Smitty and the kids. And Vernon was like, they're separated, remember? And remember, he came over here with his suitcases. They not together no more. So Anita says, look, okay, regardless, Martin has been present for his family for the last 2 years, working in Congress, doing all of that, giving back to the community. And none of that would have been possible if y'all would have went to the authorities that night. So Vernon is, still blaming himself for the nightmares and the guilt that Martin has experienced. And he basically just is saying, this is the worst decision I've ever made. And I love how Anita kind of comes in and tells him basically hindsight is 2020. You know what I'm saying? And had we known that it was going to lead up to all this, maybe we would have done something different. So they both agree, look, we got to move forward and, make the best of what remains. And so Martin happens to walk into the room and he's like, y'all ain't got to stop talking about me just because y'all was talking about me. And I'm in the room now. And so he said, look, I'm ready to have a conversation with my mother now. And, the truth is out. And I just want to make sure there's no more secrets. So then we hop over to the hotel, wherever Ted is staying, okay? Hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. If your man starts acting up, switch and take his friend Carlton. Erase, replace, embrace, new face. Hey, okay. I'm sorry. So Nicole goes to see Ted and he thinks that she's there because of what happened at Audrey Jean's. And so Nicole's like, how could you? And so Ted is like, okay, I'm gonna need you to be a little bit more clear than that because how could I what? So Nicole brings up the press conference and Ted said, I don't know nothing about no press conference. I've been in surgery all day. So I will say this, my theory that Ted was going to be somewhere at Leslie's house and get caught up. Kudos to you, Ted. You proved us all wrong because I definitely saw that going down. But yeah, he being his surgery all day, so he don't know what's going on. And he said I wasn't privy to what went down on the Dupree party line. So she starts laying into him about hiding another secret from her, about Martin. And Nicole lets Ted know that I know about you fixing KKK Kenny's face. And so Ted tells her, look, I ain't had no choice in the matter. And he asks her, do you even know what happened? And reminds her Martin could have lost his life that night. So of course I was going to help my son. So Nicole is like, but why did you keep it from me? And Ted said, I did it for you, your family, our family. us and said, I know what it feels like to make a devastating mistake and, wanting to take it all back. So Nicole brings up how he didn't even tell Martin that he had done. So Nicole was like, well, you didn't even tell Martin that you did the surgery. And Ted asked Nicole, why would I do that? Why? So I could make him feel worse about what he did, about saving his life and his grandfather's life. Yeah, I was just gonna rub salt in the wound and continue to remind. And a man passed away as a result. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And so Ted tells her, look, the problem is it won't about you. And Nicole responds, well, nothing ever is. I ain't even gonna hold you. I ain't even gonna hold y'all. Ted looked at her and said, look, this self-pity crap that you doing is beneath you, okay? And it's blatantly untrue. Shout out to the HR director, okay? Did you hear your shout out, girl? Blatant truth. Did you hear your shout out in Beyond the Gates today? Okay. So Nicole lets him know that, you know what? I'm just telling you how I feel. And so she talks about how she used to be so confident in her life and marriage and now realizes the people she loves the most don't respect her enough to tell her the truth. So then she asked Ted if he was she's like, oh, so were you under the orders of the Dupree High Command to leave me in the dark? So Ted tells her, look, Vernon and Anita needed a favor for our son. So why was I going to refuse that? And so she asked, well, did they hold a pow pow to your head? And Ted said, look, my goal was to protect Martin. And Nicole was like, from his own mother? Me? And so Ted said, look, that wasn't the case. Vernon wanted to keep it contained as much as possible. And so she starts getting on him about forcing Martin to keep his secret and the guilt Martin must have felt, which we all know Martin absolutely did feel. And then she also accuses Ted of being cruel and denying Martin of his mother. So Ted is attempting to respond, but Nicole tells him, I ain't trying to hear it. Because the more I hear, the more I question who did I marry. Okay. And so then he brings up, and then she keeps on. Okay, she keeps on and on and on and on. Then she goes on about how, yeah, and you had Martin up there visiting Leslie, and then you kept me from the one person, you kept him from the one person that could help him navigate the aftermath of this horrendous attack, and tells him that, you know, you kept me from helping my son. And so Nicole tells Ted, any possibility of us getting back together, that's done. That's been ruined. We are never, ever, ever getting back together, in the words of Taylor Swift. Okay. Ted is accusing Nicole of using Martin's ordeal as an excuse not to fight for their marriage. And Nicole asked, well, how many times am I supposed to stand here and let you knock me out? And she said, if this would have happened to Kat, you would have been cool if I just didn't say nothing and told you to let it go. And he was like, I would try to understand. Okay. And so Nicole said, I did try when I was confronted with the decades old lie about your affair. And now I get hit with this. Ted tells her, look, I was just trying to keep you out of the line of fire. And he said, this was all about protecting Martin from the fallout. And I didn't want it to touch you. She said, oh, so that act of chivalry made you lie to me daily for years? So Ted said, look, I have never lied about how much I love you. And Nicole cuts him off. Nicole said, is that what you told yourself? When you helped your son cover up that night that changed his life and his psyche? And then she brings up Ted cheating with Leslie's crazy ass again. She ain't never going to let that go. But I get it. It's still fresh. It's still fresh. So Ted says, look, I know how I look. And she tells him, well, then you should understand why I'm taking the next steps. And I said, not them papers. Papers. And Ted wants to know what the next steps are. But Nicole walks out. But I think we all know. I think we all know. All right. Deputy Do Good is here to do good. All right. So we see Jacob, aka Deputy Do Good, and Naomi. And he's upset. He's like, why would Smitty come to me with information? And now all of a sudden he wants to dead the, Marcel story. So Naomi is like, I don't think it's a big deal. And And so Jacob's like, I wonder if Smitty's covering up for Martin. So Naomi is confused because thought Martin was the victim of Marcel's corruption. So what changed besides Smitty just dropping his story? So Jacob tells her about Marcel finding the body in the park the same time Martin called this press conference. And Naomi said, I don't understand the connection. I don't. And Jacob shares that when he went to tell Smitty, he shut down and then he brought up this whole spousal privilege situation. So Naomi tells him Smitty probably thought she was being nosy. And she's like, I don't believe that there's any way that Martin is connected to a crime. So Jacob says, well, it's possible because it's your family. And the way Naomi looked like she was ready to curse him out, I was here for it. I was absolutely here for it. And I wish she would have done it. Now, she gave him a good read. However, I would have liked to see her go in harder because that was a little. I said, okay, Jacob, like your family is holier than thou. Okay. Your father's name Elon. Okay. Then she asked Jacob if he really thinks Martin is, involved in something illegal. So Jacob says Smitty remaining silent to avoid incriminating Martin is super suspicious. And Naomi says, well, the lawyer in me thinks Smitty is smart and knows better than to talk to the police without an attorney present. So Jacob said, well, Smitty is the one that came to me with his suspicions and now he's switching up. And so Naomi tells him, and Smitty having questions before doesn't mean that he owes you answers now. But you better, Naomi. Jacob is like, well, you know what? Smitty knows what's going on. And he said, because he gave Martin an ultimatum and he followed through with it. So Naomi says they've been married long enough to know that, couples go through ebbs and flows. That's just what it is, right? And she suggests that maybe he caught Smitty at a bad time and tells Jacob, just give them some privacy. How about that? Then she asked Jacob if there's something more going on than what dealing with Martin and Smitty and mentions Elon. Jacob says that just thinking about my dad being involved, I feel like I'm disrespecting him. And so Naomi encourages him to talk because remember that little spousal rule that you don't want Smitty to use? Well, now that's time for it to kick in. But I don't know, Naomi. He's Deputy Do Good is okay. He going at his only loyalty is to that badge, like I said. Okay. Jacob tells her how he went to his dad about the body in the park that was found, and Elon basically told him that was just something routine. It's DC. It's another unalive body in a park. And Jacob says, "Well, I felt like my father was telling me without telling me to basically stop asking questions." And he knows something is connecting Marcel and Martin, and now there's a body connected to it. And I said, "Oh Lord." So Naomi brings up how, well, Elon could also be a part of this. And Jacob's like, I told you I don't want to think about that. But questions if damn, but what if I'm right? So then Naomi tells him that and so Naomi said, look, okay, before you stress yourself out, maybe your daddy's right. Maybe you turning a handful of questions into something that doesn't really exist. And so she asks Jacob to imagine if everything he's thinking is true, are you really going to go and kick that hornet's nest? Deputy Do Good, Mike. We get a DeAndre scene. They are in bed together after she has beckoned him after her conversation with Bill previously. All right. And so Andre tells Danny that and literally my notes say we get another scene of Danny being in the bed with Andre talking about Bill. Irritates me every time. But Andre says that even though, he's no fan of Bill's, if this is the result of, Danny hitting him up for a booty call, then he all for it. So then she mentions how, yeah, okay, well, don't think this means that I see it for that little hussy. Ashley, please don't think that it means that. And Andre cuts her off and said, look, I know you're not really jealous. And Danny tells him, well, look, I don't care what you do. You do whomever, whenever you want to do, which we know that's not true, Danny. You done already proved that. So Andre says, look, I'm going to make you eat those words in the future. And Danny said, look, I'm focused on the present. You keep talking about this future. And I told you, Danny has said this 1,000,001 times. I told you I am here for a good time, not a long time. Wink, wink. Okay. I'll leave the money on the dresser. All right. So then she gets a call from her dad letting her know that basically it's urgent and he needs her to come over to the house. So then Chelsea walks into Bill's office upset, letting him know that she had been trying to get in touch with him. Basically, the premise of this scene is we learned that Bill had dropped the ball on whatever piece of paperwork Kat and Chelsea got about this purse line. Chelsea Cat. I like Chelsea Cat. But anyway, they had got the paperwork and basically I think it was like a cease and desist almost. And so yeah, and so she's like, yeah, and you didn't do what you were supposed to do in time, and now they're looking for a judgment in their favor. And so he's like, my bad, I've only had 2 strokes, sorry, been through a lot right now. And so basically this just results in her saying, you know what, I don't want us to keep any more secrets. I realize that I probably should be here a little bit more, checking up on you, making sure you're here because I don't want you gone, even if I don't necessarily like you all the time. And I just thought it was cute because they kind of ended with Bill says thick as thieves, and she responds tight as Dupree's, and I said that was so cute. That literally was the highlight of that scene. So then we get into a I can't even call it DNA. I don't know. I don't even want to do this scene, but we're gonna go through it and I'm gonna make it quick. So Derek decides that he gonna go to the hospital to see Chenise to drop off these resistant bands that she gave him for physical therapy, all that stuff, right? So Chenise is offering, oh, well, I make house calls, which of course has Ashley furious because she can hear in the distance. So she decides she gonna call Andre and tell him, oh, I need backup. I'll explain when you get here. So then Derek is still sitting there in Shanice's face, and Chenise is like, well, you returned the resistance band, so what is you here for? Okay. Basically, he lets her know, look, I'm trying to make Ashley jealous and make myself feel good at the same time. And he asked her if that is that a problem, and Chenise is just sitting there chuckling. Um, but no, Chenise said, I ain't got no problem creating a little mess. I'll help you get your little girlfriend back. This can be mutually beneficial for us. But I didn't understand. She was like, oh, I'm working on my dating skills or something, or my flirtation skills. And I was like, okay. Okay. So then we see Danny finally get to her parents' house. And Martin is still there, which I could have sworn he said he was gonna go talk to Nicole, but okay. So he's broken the news about what happened 2 years ago. Danny is visibly shaken and she questions why someone would want to do this to one of her family members. Vernon explains, you know, fortunately, you and Nicole, because me and your mother worked so hard, um, and put you in this nice, lavish situation that, yeah, y'all were never really exposed to that. Okay. And so Martin starts to question whether he made an assumption about the races like they made about him. And so Vernon assures him, no, that wasn't it. All the things that transpired before you popped off happened. And therefore you had no choice but to pop off. Um, and so, Danny embraces Martin and tells him how sorry she is. And then she starts thinking about Nicole. And so Anita lets her know that they did tell her, and Martin wonders if his mother is ever going to forgive him or, look at him in the same way. And so Danny is concerned because, Nicole has already been through a lot. So Anita reminds Martin that, look, Nicole raised you correctly. And unfortunately, that man was unalive that night because somebody put him on a path that led to his own destruction. And so she said, look, I'm just thankful that you and Vernon aren't just names on a t-shirt or a mural on the hill. And I said, woo, that hits different. For all of our, our Breonna Taylors, our Trayvon Martins, that hit different. I said, well, woo, okay. So Vernon reminds him that they didn't cause this, And Martin just was doing what he was supposed to be doing and defending them. And so Danny chimes in, whatever decisions y'all made to get y'all home that night, that was the right one, and said you should tell your kids the same. And that reminds Martin of how KKK Kenny tried to get at him by messing with his kids, but he isn't sure that they're going to understand. And so he believes, I could lose my family for good. Anita's like, Smitty ain't going to turn them kids against you. But Martin said, but maybe the facts will do it for him. And then the door opens and Nicole walks in. Whoo, try to get it together. Nicole walks in and she just embraces him. But the best way I can explain it, I swear to God, I'm about to cry. But the way, it's almost like he was holding her up. Does that make sense? And I understand, like, oh, Martin looks, obviously too old to be her son or whatever. But if we can get away from that, I'm sure anybody who's a parent watching this knows the worst, probably one of the worst pains in the world is seeing your child hurt and how much that hurts you, right? And okay. And the way she broke down more than Martin, y'all, it got me. Clearly, it got me. And but she said, look, don't worry about, because he's trying to talk to her, and she's like, nah, not tonight. Tonight, I want you to rest. I want you to get to sleep, no nightmares, and we'll start the work tomorrow. She said, I'll get you everything that you need. But right now you got me. Oh, Lord Jesus, y'all. Let me take a break. So Andre comes off the elevator and Ashley is trying to play, do this whole thing about making Derek jealous. And he's confused because he's like, you're doing a little bit too much. And this is not really working because Derek's not really even paying attention to you. So finally she's like, well, go away then, right? And so then before Derek leaves, he basically just toys with Ashley. Let's call a thing. He toys with Ashley and plays with her head. And he lets her know that, yeah, he misses her. And she's just like, I hope you don't hate me. And he was like, you know, he was like, I could never hate you. He said, I just wanted you to be happy. And I just wanted it to be with me. Now, Bill comes by Ted's hotel and Ted tells him that, oh, well, look, conveniently, I might need to retain you. Okay. And Bill said, well, that ain't my specialty, but I do know a firm down on the K Street that I could refer you to. So Ted says, I'll take the number at this point. And then basically tells Bill about how Nicole just came and read him his rights after learning how he helped cover up Martin's secret. Now, Bill acknowledges he knows because they told her about the press conference. Oh, no. Bill acknowledges that, yeah, she knows because they told her after the press conference. So Ted was like, well, why did y'all decide to spill the beans after 2 years, especially since he thinks KK Kenny is gone? And so that's when Bill lets him know, well, no, not only is he gone, he's gone, like instant gone, like bye, 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 like that type of gone. You know what I'm saying? He tells them that, look, they found KK Kenny in the park this afternoon. So Ted said, what did you do? And Bill let him know, look, I was in a room full of witnesses with Marvin and Vernon. Okay. And so shout out to Cleo. I literally wrote it down. I said, I got to give Cleo her shout out because she was in the comments. And remember when I had mentioned everybody that was there for an alibi, and I didn't even realize Ted wasn't in the room. Now, thankfully, we know Ted was in surgery, so he has an alibi, but Cleo pointed that out to me in the comments. So thank you, Cleo. I love my virtual co-host. But Ted basically says that Nicole never mentioned anything about a body, and Bill tells him because she doesn't know the whole story yet. So Bill explains that the police think that there was a robbery gone wrong, and Ted tells him, well, this could be dangerous for a lot of people if the cops start digging. And so Bill reminds him, yeah, but luckily we got good friends on the force. And then Ted mentions how, well, it's good Jacob ain't on the case because, Jesus, we know Deputy Do Good. And Bill agrees that's the last thing we need. And so Ted asks Bill, well, what should we do now? And Bill tells him, let Elon and Marcel do their job. And so Ted is just like, how can you be so calm about everything? And Bill feels like I eliminated a threat to Martin and his kids. I don't feel bad. I feel no ways tired. See Jacob, and he's basically assuming that Naomi wants him to ignore the fact that Martin may have been involved in an unaliving. So Naomi tells him, look, slow your roll, bruh. And he says, you're acting just like a Dupree. Naomi said, thank you for that compliment. And says, we're a tight, loyal, fighting a family fighting for justice and our people. Thank you. So Naomi said, I'm proud to defend when it's one of my people, okay? And reminds him, and you're supposed to be one of us too. Family, okay? And so Jacob goes on about his civic duty. We know Deputy Do-Good to uphold the law no matter who's involved. Naomi said, you're reaching. You're reaching. Okay. So Jacob questions, well, what if I'm right? And Naomi humors Jacob and says, and what if you're right? Are you ready to take your daddy down, ruin Martin's career and the whole community that's affected? And then she brings up the scar that it would leave on her family who has taken him in as, as family as well, right? And so Jacob's like, but Naomi, you're an officer of the court. And Naomi said, and I'm a Dupree first. So Jacob said, oh, that's what we doing? That's what we doing? Naomi said, look, my family is your family. I need you to get that through your head, okay? And she said, let Marcel and Elon handle this one, please. This one time, please. Because if not, we ain't gonna be married no more. I'm gonna be down at the law office talking to on K Street with Ted. FAFO. Okay. Now, basically we end the episode. Martin is texting the kids, letting them know that he understands today was hard, but tomorrow's another day and he loves them. So Danny comes in with a cookie for Nicole, and Nicole does have her normal usual attitude on, okay? And she makes it a big deal about Danny stealing the damn cookies. And I said, is this where we going, Nicole? But they turn it around. And so Danny's like, look, what do you want to do? You want to run away? You want to drive all night? Where do you want to go? Okay. And so Nicole responds, I want to go 30 years back to when we had our whole lives ahead of us. And Danny says, well, look, if you want to go back to Miss Mary Mack, we can do that. Okay. And Nicole says, look, I wanted to go back to when it was just you and me. And she questions how they got to where they are right now. And she says she misses who they used to be. And I was like, oh, there was another moment where I was like tearing up. Danny tells her, but the good thing about them, the family, their dynamic, is that she's never alone. And she reminds Nicole, look, we're not perfect, but we're also not your enemies. And Nicole says, I realize that. And so Danny says that although we can be a bitter pill, we can also help you heal. I said, ooh, woo, when I tell you that had the tears flowing, okay? And then she just asked Nicole, she's like, basically, stop pushing us away. And so then they exchange I love yous and hug it out. And it was chef's kiss. It was a great episode. Yeah, y'all. Let me know what you thought about this episode of Beyond the Gates. If you have not already, please make sure you hit the like button. Make sure that you comment. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms. That is the TikTok, the Blue Sky, the IG, the Facebook, the X. And I feel like, no, that's it. That's it. That's it. I think I covered everything. But yeah, y'all, I appreciate y'all. And I will catch you tomorrow for, episode 95. Jesus, we are almost at 100. Can you believe that? That's crazy. Nasty work. But anyway, y'all, I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night. Be safe. Bye-bye.